yes, it was even, it was while I was reading the book. I started it, and within a few pages, I was really captivated by it, and also having very vivid pictures of the film version was sort of playing parallel in my mind. And actually, by the time I finished the book, I was absolutely convinced that I wanted to make it into a film. I was similarly convinced that my chances would be very slim of succeeding in doing that, but I was pretty determined to have a go. Well, the novel at that point was already a bit of a phenomenon, particularly in the States. At that point, I'd made, this is about 3-4 years ago, I'd made 2 films which were very well received critically, but they were small art house films. Yeah. And I thought, well, Emma, who's an Irish woman who's now a Canadian citizen as well, had gone to North America, had this big triumph, was being courted by all sorts of filmmakers from the big leagues. And then you think, well, what's she going to go back home and give this opportunity to this young, well, not that young, but this filmmaker and production company that are from her backyard. Yeah. So I thought, well, the best thing I can do, the knowledge that she was born and raised in Dublin was kind of good, because I thought, okay, well, on the one hand, that means that she might not want to give it to somebody back from her hometown, but on the other hand, at least I know the language that I can talk to her in. Sometimes Dubliners and Irish people generally are not big ones for flattery, so you can just get stuck right in. And I talked very openly about what I thought really was at the root of the book. What were the essential elements that I felt were the ones that any film would have to capture, how I thought we could do that. And I also kind of warned against approaches which I thought she would get, which would emphasize, stylized or hyper-real or magically real, possibilities of capturing the boy's first-person point of view in a film. And I said, no, we don't need to do that. There are multiple ways of creating this as the boy's story, which are much subtler, much more natural, and which will preserve the kind of impact of the book far better. It took a while even after that. Emma likes to say, well, he wrote me this letter and I thought this was great. But in fact, I wrote her that and she thought the letter was great. And then it took a little while, because I think the people around her said, you know what, he's still sort of early enough in his career, so, not sure yet whether he'd be able to get the film made. But what happened after that is I made another 2 films which were pretty well regarded, and at that point it became much more realistic. It does. I mean, I don't know how my feeling is he's the only, I don't know if there's anybody else out there that could have played that part. So I think we're incredibly lucky that he's there. I'm incredibly lucky that we found him. We talked to very experienced casting directors who'd cast children, particularly out of North America. And the advice we got was, look, okay, set the date for filming, give yourself 6 months to find the child. And if you... the hope is that you find the child in that 6 months. I mean, it's really scary, yeah. And we didn't immediately find the boy, of course. And as the weeks went by and into months, the clock's ticking, and you're constantly reassuring everybody that the process is, very robust and it'll all be fine. While underneath, you're thinking this could be this could really end. This could be it. And then we found Jake, and this boy from Vancouver who just has everything as an actor. Also happens to look exactly, apart from actually looking a bit like BRIE, he plays the age perfectly. He's a little bit older, which means that he's got that bit more stamina and concentration. And, it was just such a fabulous moment for everybody when we knew we had Jack. Definitely, we protected him from all of the kind of darker, more adult themes, and what he understood was actually what is, I suppose, for a child pretty central territory for children, which is, it's like, what would it be like if you were captured? You're living you're walking through a forest and somebody captures you and puts you in a little house and keeps you there for years and years. So so he understood that. He also understood, and he's a very clever boy, he understood the idea that he'd never seen anything outside this room. So we could chat about that and improv around that, about what he would feel if he saw the first car, and would he be frightened, and what would the noise sound like, and for us also as filmmakers to fully imagine yourself into the mind of a child who has never seen the outside, it was a pretty daunting prospect.
Completely.
But we found a language that Jake understood, and then also found ways of talking about the emotional content of scenes that he could understand. So painting pictures of situations that are not the same, but lead to the same sort of emotional place. It was hugely important that they really found a bond, and all we could do is create the space for that. So we finished the set early so that they could spend time in it together, playing games, doing stuff, making things that would then be part of the set, so that they actually did contribute to the art direction of the piece in the way that the two characters are supposed to build everything or create everything. And BRIE is such a warm and sort of generous person that she was really able to make Jake feel so comfortable, and they bonded so well. And BRIE was also a real collaborator for me on set, because, and this is really remarkable, BRIE was able to sort of, we would get to a point in a scene where some of the scenes are very emotional, and for her, really quite, she has to go to quite sort of deep places. But she could do that and at the same time be sort of, pausing to say to Jake, just flick your hair back, it's over your eye. And then she'd look around at me and I'd go, okay, and she'd go, right, and then we'd start, and Jake would be back in and she would be fully emotionally present. I mean, very, very hard to do that. And so the two of us were, and what I've said to people is, if there is a kid on set, it's all about the kid. And it takes a very, very good actor to be able to preserve the purity of their own performance, and at the same time pause, wait for me to, I'll stop and start, get Jake to repeat a line in the middle of a scene which is really flowing. If it breaks, I'll stop it and I'll go back a line and we'll do it again. And the actor still has to, the adult actor has to keep their concentration through that very unnatural process. First of all, I agree with them. I think you learn a lot about your film when it goes out into the world. I usually feel it takes about a year after you've made a film to kind of fully come to terms with what it is. That's because in the making of it, you get so close to it, it becomes such a part of you. It's very difficult to step back and look at it. It takes a while after you've finished. And I think all of those responses are valid. I mean, whatever people feel about the film, whatever it means to them, there's some truth to that. For me, it's a film, ultimately a very hopeful film, and a very positive film. It's one which I suppose proposes that people have the capacity to find value and life and hope and redemption even when they go through very, very dark experiences. And it's a love story. It's a story of the love between a mother and their child, and it celebrates that. So even though it's a film which when you pitch, people will go, ooh, that sounds like it's very dark. It's not. It's a journey towards light, always, right from the beginning. And it's probably the most hopeful film that I've made.